Released by Capcom in the year 2000 on the Sega Dreamcast and later ported to multiple platforms, Resident Evil Code Veronica would be a direct sequel to Resident Evil 2, even though it was not a numbered installment. Directed by Hiroki Kato and written by Noboru Sugimura, the game was also produced by Shinji Mikami, the creator of the series. Releasing in a new console generation, it enjoyed an upgrade in sound and visual effects, now using fully 3D environments rather than the pre-rendered 2D backgrounds of the past, and enjoying higher quality character models. For story, it follows the exploits of Claire Redfield after surviving Resident Evil 2, as she looks for the whereabouts of her brother Chris as they continue their fight against Umbrella. For gameplay, Code Veronica would still be a survival horror game and uses a lot of the combat improvements used in Resident Evil 3. One feature is now characters can dual-wield certain weapons and even target multiple foes at once. In addition, certain secrets and puzzles can be partly solved by Claire, and then Chris. Keep in mind, an updated version called Code Veronica X would remaster the original game and also add more story and cutscenes, and this will be the version used here. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a RECAPitation. On December 17, 1998, 3 months after the destruction of Raccoon City, we see survivor Claire Redfield infiltrating an Umbrella site looking for her brother, former STARS member Chris Redfield, and Umbrella security spares no effort in trying to take her down. They manage to subdue her, and 10 days later she is transported to a prison on Rockford Island for interrogation. She is woken up by the sound of explosions, and soon the Umbrella commander who captured her limps in, opening her cell and telling her she's free to go, but there's no hope of escaping in the aftermath of this unexplained attack. Going topside and finding the prison complex ruined from the earlier bombardment, she is shocked to see T-virus zombies crawl out from everywhere. Finding herself somehow in a new nightmare, she is soon fired upon by a guard tower, and firing back, the assailant stops, realizing she isn't a zombie. He introduces himself as Steve, and takes an immediate liking to Claire. While he does share he's heading to the airport on this island, he doesn't want Claire following him, thinking she'll slow him down, so he moves ahead. As Claire fights past hordes of former prisoners and guards, she learns there's been some sort of experimenting on the inmates here. She soon catches up to Steve, who's been reading files on a computer and catches the name Chris Redfield. Claire explains he's her brother, and mentions Chris is under heavy surveillance by Umbrella. The terminal still has outside access, so she messages old ally Leon for help and asks him to let Chris know he's being watched. Steve jokes she should send her coordinates and ask Chris for help, and Claire takes the suggestion, which surprises him, and he angrily advises her not to rely on others for help as he storms away again. Exploring further, Claire finds a large mansion on this prison island, surprisingly unaffected by the air raid or zombie outbreak. She finds mention of the lord of the mansion, as well as a pair of twins with a strange obsession with insects. But seeing no one here to help, she moves to leave, but now hears a cry of help from Steve. She frees him from a trap set for anyone stealing an exotic pair of golden Lugers from the armory, though when she asks for the weapons in question, Steve refuses to share. Instead, he says he'll trade for something fully automatic and hurries away with his prize. As Claire follows, she pauses as she notices a red laser dot move up her body, and she ducks behind cover just in time to dodge some shots from a rifle. The man calls out Claire by name, accusing her of getting caught on purpose just so she could lead her forces here. He then introduces himself as the commander of his base, Alfred Ashford, grandson to one of the founding fathers of Umbrella. He then accuses her of being the cause of the air raid on the island, but Claire honestly doesn't know anything about it. He then mentions that because of the raid, there was a containment breach of the experimental T-virus here on the island, unleashing all sorts of monsters. Alfred then walks away, saying he'll have fun with her first before disposing of her. Leaving the mansion and navigating past the new monsters that roam the island, seeing new victims meet gruesome ends, and evading the rising security measures of the compound, Claire is still under the watchful eye of Alfred, who is taking his time toying with her. He traps her in a specially prepared playground in order to fight for his amusement, and Claire finds herself facing off against the experimental BOWs being developed there, a lower budget version of a tyrant codenamed Bandersnatch, which was created out of the strain of finding rare compatible tyrant hosts and wanting to mass produce a powerful alternative. It grabs her with its unique elastic arm, and Claire is caught off guard, but Steve now crashes in, unloading his custom Lugers into the monster, staggering it. He appeals to Claire to be her knight in shining armor, and that she needs him, but she brushes him off, instead offering to trade some submachine guns she found for his gold Lugers like they agreed. However, they are interrupted by Alfred, who lowers both of them with an elevator to the deepest layers of the facility. Steve offers to move on ahead again, but this time to clear the way for Claire. He tells her she can depend on him, though when she asks why he's here on this island to begin with, he suddenly becomes withdrawn and defensive. The bridge neuron suddenly collapses and Claire's foot is stuck. Meanwhile, Steve turns to find a zombie behind him, but when he recognizes the face, he cries out that he just can't shoot it. But when it turns its attention to Claire, it nearly sets on her when Steve cries out to his father while emptying his guns into his zombified dad to save Claire. Distraught over his sudden loss, Steve opens up, telling Claire his father was a minor scientist working for Umbrella, but selling company secrets. When he was caught, Steve's mother was killed, and Steve was sent here with his father to be imprisoned. Letting Steve cope with his loss, Claire moves ahead, noting some of the new experimental BOWs of the T-virus present here, and finding a means to explore further into the mansion. Doing so, she finds more depictions of twins, though this mansion is no longer as safe for monsters as it once was. Spotting and heading for a house on a hill in the distance, Claire overhears Alfred be chastised by his sister named Alexia, who appears to be the one really in charge as they work to restore the glory of the Ashford family name. Leaving before she's spotted, Claire also catches a report by an Umbrella Special Forces soldier named Hunk, who trained here on this island years ago and is concerned about the contents of a specific frozen capsule he was assigned to transport to another Umbrella base. Finding and delivering some hemostatic medicine to the wounded Umbrella officer who captured her, he repays her kindness with a lockpick, figuring it's better if she, someone who's pretty good at unlocking, takes it with her. More ghouls and traps await Claire as she looks for a means off the island, and as she finds herself back at Alfred's mansion, she is suddenly called out by name by a man in sunglasses she has never met before, and introduces himself as a ghost coming back to haunt her brother. Suddenly, Claire recognizes the man from Chris's past as Albert Wesker, who somehow survived the tyrant attack and explosion, and looked no worse for wear for it. He claims responsibility for the air raid earlier and laughs as now Claire will be the perfect bait to lure Chris here. Wesker is supernaturally strong, with strange glowing eyes to go with superhuman agility, as he leaves Claire alive, saying he has a use for her later. Retreating further within the Ashford Manor, she finds a newspaper clipping sharing how Alexia was a child genius, so impressive Umbrella gave her the position of head researcher at the age of 10, and another letter from Alfred confessing an unhealthy obsession with Alexia. She is suddenly cornered by Alexia at gunpoint, but then Steve stumbles into the same room. He quickly assesses Claire in trouble as Alexia and Steve trade shots, wounding each other. Alexia escapes through a hidden door, and as they follow through, they are now ambushed by Alfred. Steve wins the struggle, and it's revealed by his fresh wound and makeup still on that Alfred has been posing as Alexia this whole time. Alfred escapes from a confused Steve, and Claire believes there never was an Alexia, and Alfred just thinks it was two people. Alfred triggers a self-destruct sequence for the facility, so Steve and Claire hurry to the airport, seeing planes now fly overhead. Finding their own plane to take off in, Steve preps the plane, but as Claire clears the way for them to take off, Alfred unleashes his trump card to kill Claire, a derivative tyrant of his own, showing off Umbrella's mass production model of the T-103 Tyrant. Edging a win against this daunting foe, Claire finishes her prep work and Steve is able to fly them out with plenty of time, as too does Alfred, though they discover the Tyrant has chased them into the plane. After a harrowing fight, Claire sends the Tyrant packing, and just when things seem clear, the plane suddenly locks into autopilot thanks to Alfred, and they have no choice but to follow Alfred to his destination. As they take the time to rest, Steve fails to sneak a kiss from Claire, but is more shocked when he reads their coordinates and learns they are now above Antarctica. As they descend, they see the seaplanes that launched before, surmising this must be another Umbrella facility, but their landing gear doesn't pull out, so their plane ends up sliding and crashing into the new compound. Claire and Steve wake up sometime later, banged up but still alive. Steve leaps down, catching Claire on the way down, and they agree they need to focus on escaping here now too. As Claire explores, it seems this facility too has suffered an outbreak, and she reads the rumor of a man locked underground here for 10 years, nicknamed Nosferatu. She then finds the journal of Alexander Ashford, Alfred's father, who explains his father co-founded the progenitor T-virus with Lord Spencer for military purposes, using their research to establish Umbrella Chemical Inc. Though Alexander was versed in biogenetics, his father suddenly died in the middle of his project, and he was not qualified to lead the research capably, much to the shame of himself and to the founder of the Ashford line, Veronica. To prevent Spencer from taking everything his father built, Alexander built a secret facility in the Antarctic, very much like his Trevor-designed mansion already, and codenamed this project Veronica after the family founder. As Claire explores on, she sees additional BOW species experiments, such as spiders and moths, but also the Howling Man she mentioned earlier. She runs into Steve again, who brings up an Australian base 7 miles from here that should be their target, and they think to use a driller to break through the walls here. Claire reassures Steve they're going to make it together, though Alfred interrupts them again. Steve ducks and dives in close, pelting Alfred and causing him to tumble over the railing to the icy ravine. They then hear the roar of Nosferatu louder now, and elsewhere the mutated man breaks his bonds and lumbers towards them. Claire recovers Alfred's sniper rifle and Steve drives him out, drilling through the walled facility and directly to the base's helipad. Their progress is halted by Nosferatu, who stands before them, mutates even further, and knocks Steve over on the edge of a limb. Claire faces off against the poison-spewing man, kills him, and hurries to help Steve back up. Steve's pride seems hurt as he's helped up, wanting to prove himself to Claire and vows to himself to protect her the next time. There's no helicopter for them, but there is a snowmobile they decide to use to drive to the Australian base, and nothing seems to be in their way now. However, elsewhere we see Alfred is mortally wounded, but still alive, as he opens a room with a very precious specimen within. He calls out to the woman in the tank as his sister, Alexia, as she is revived and her tank drains. Seeing her brother dying before her, Alexia sends a massive tentacle out to smash Claire and Steve in the snowmobile, destroying it as payback for killing her brother. Now, things cut to Chris Redfield, who got a lead from Leon Kennedy about Claire, arriving on Rockford Island to save his sister. He encounters the Umbrella officer Claire helped earlier, who tells him he already helped Claire escape this island, so he should go too. Unfortunately, a giant mutated earthworm crashes in and swallows the officer whole. Chris kills the worm, which spits out the officer, but it's too late as he dies just after giving Chris the lighter Claire gave him. Searching for clues within the facility, Chris sees Alexia for the first time, wondering who she is, and both are spied upon by Wesker, who sends an old friend out to meet Chris. He unleashes the new and improved Hunter BOW that he obtained after providing Umbrella research to a rival company, and Chris is pushed to the wall, fending off a force of them. After defeating them, Chris is shocked to see Albert Wesker, the former STARS captain who betrayed him and was thought long dead, step out and explain he's just here on a mission to capture Alexia. Chris deduces Wesker was the one who attacked the island and moves to attack him, but Wesker pushes Chris away with superhuman strength and speed. He explains he's hated Chris ever since Chris literally destroyed his original plans, but as Chris knocks away Wesker's perpetual sunglasses, it's revealed Wesker is definitely a monster too. He mentions Claire and Alexia are in Antarctica, but before noticing Alexia disappear on the monitor. Tossing Chris aside, he rushes away for now, leaving Chris with a fresh batch of Bandersnatches to deal with. Navigating past those and a mutated salamander, Chris finds a jet to pursue Wesker in and save Claire. Arriving safely, he finds the Antarctic base riddled with strange tentacles. He later locates a journal wherein he learns Alfred and Alexia were actually clones, made from the DNA of Veronica Ashford, though Alfred was an unintended byproduct. Learning their origins, the twins developed a new T. Veronica strain, made from combining the progenitor virus with queen ant DNA with the aim of creating a T-virus strain that would allow the host to retain its full intelligence, and tested it on their father, that would turn him into Nosferatu. Tweaking it, Alexia determined she would need to enter cryosleep for 15 years after injecting herself in order for her new body to properly adapt to the virus. In a lab, Chris finds the dead body of Alfred, and beyond that, a foyer that is a spitting image of the original Spencer mentioned. He finds Claire alive but trapped in a cocoon, and freeing her, the Redfield siblings are finally reunited. She tells him she wants to rescue her friend Steve, who was captured elsewhere in this mansion, and Chris agrees to help, but not before helping cure Claire of the poison used on her. Finding the serum and getting Claire back up on her feet, they are spotted by Alexia, which surprises Claire that there is a real one. They hurry to pursue her, but Alexia has a massive tendril smash their path, separating the Redfields and injuring Chris's leg. They then hear the painful cry of Steve, and Chris urges Claire to go on ahead. Resuming control of Claire, she learns this facility has a self-destruct function, and soon finds Steve strapped to a chair. Freeing him, Steve pushes her away, explaining Alexia injected him with the T. Veronica virus as a new test subject, and it isn't long before his body begins mutating into a monstrous new form. He lashes out at Claire with an axe, and she dives into a nearby cell for safety. However, one of Alexia's tendrils bursts out of a wall and captures Claire for Steve, who at the last second reclaims his mind thanks to the improved version of the T. Veronica virus, and he instead chops Alexia's tendril, freeing Claire. The tendril then stabs through Steve and retreats, and Steve begins reverting to his original form. Confessing his love for Claire, Steve then succumbs to his injuries and dies. Back by Chris, he looks on as Wesker stands before Alexia, demanding the T. Veronica virus, of which to his knowledge only she carries within her body. She deems him unworthy as she descends the stairs, burning away her human shell to reveal a more powerful ascended form. Wesker still insists she'll be coming with him as the two superpowers collide, with Alexia's pyrokinesis and toughness able to catch up and burn Wesker's speed and strength, who seems keen to avoid being burned. Wesker is distracted when he sees Chris come out of hiding and decides to withdraw for now, leaving Chris to fend off Alexia and daze her long enough to escape. Claire mentions activating the self-destruct sequence to the base unlocks all doors and hands him a guide she found about it, and Chris decides to take this opportunity to hit two birds with one stone. He activates the base's self-destruct and Claire is freed, but their escape is blocked by Alexia, who moves to their position. Chris spots a locked linear launcher, the experimental plasma weapon prepared by Alexander Ashford, ironically in the event that Alexia's experiments went out of control. The weapon is armed but needs to be charged, and as Alexia encroaches upon them, Chris urges Claire to prepare their escape as he keeps Alexia busy. Claire stresses to Chris not to die, as Alexia evolves even further into a monstrous form, more like the queen ant the T. Veronica virus was cultured from. As the fight draws on, Alexia sprouts insectile wings and begins to fly, as finally the linear launcher is ready. Alexia is fast, but not fast enough as she's hit by the linear launcher, ruptures, and explodes, killing the prodigy scientist and ending the Ashford family line. As the facility begins exploding around him, he hurries to escape, only to find Wesker was waiting for him with a captured Claire. He's mad that Chris ruined his mission of capturing Alexia, but is actually glad for the opportunity to finally kill Chris. He also mentions that he recovered Steve's body, who now is the only intact specimen of the improved T. Veronica virus in existence, and who may even be able to return to life like Wesker had. Claire is furious at Wesker for the notion, but Chris convinces her that this is his fight to settle, and pushes Claire to go on ahead. Chris and Wesker clash, but Wesker has the clear advantage, gloating over the power he's gained by shedding his humanity. As he does his best to fend him off, Chris dodges a superpowered attack at the last second, leaping for the lever that releases a pile of girders on top of Wesker. However, this barely phases Wesker, but a sudden blast from the collapsing base burns Wesker severely, and he decides to withdraw now, vowing to settle this another day. As the game ends, Chris scrambles to escape to the final countdown, and leaps back to the jet Claire was waiting in. Lifting off and escaping at the last second, the Redfield siblings renew their promise to continue their mission to destroy Umbrella once and for all. Resident Evil Code Veronica has enjoyed the success of selling over 3.7 million copies worldwide.